Thank you, Tim. So I am going to do a little commercial this morning for live streaming. So good morning, live streamers. Welcome to our service. If this service is a benefit to you, please go to the webpage and hit the donate button. So for you people as well, if the live streaming is something that you access and you appreciate it, it's not give here in this community to be recognized as a live streamer, but give through the web page so that we can see that ministry is serving. So this morning, thank you, Life. This thing called Life by Ernest Holmes. I've read this so many times. And again, one of the things I really love about the science of mind is the ability to meet me exactly where I am and to remind me of the truth that I have never fully gotten gee, I got that, been there, done that, don't have to do that anymore. More like this is a practice, and more for me I just keep needing to be reminded of the practice. And in a nutshell, the practice is moving from the intellect that judges, that has opinions, that looks at the world of appearance and says it's this, that, or the other thing, and let go of that intellect, let go of those ideas about what is happening, and drop down into heart, making a conscious connection with spirit, having faith to know that indeed spirit, God, is whole, perfect, and complete, and that it created each of us out of itself. If we will make a conscious connection with that higher power, it will always, always, always show us the way. So on my way home from the hospital on Friday, I saw a woman on PCH pushing a shopping cart. And as I had an opportunity to stop at the signal, I became aware that there was absolutely no way of telling what age that woman was. Her face was so leathered and sun-colored, and I could not stop myself. I began to cry. Now, I sometimes want to think that that moment is less than, or that person doesn't, or looking from the pastoral care offices over to the hospital and being aware that many, many people over in that hospital may be having the very worst day of their entire life. I go right to my intellect. I go right to that place where I have an opinion, where I'm in judgment, where I think the world should look like this, that, or the other thing. If I look at what's happening in, let's say, the upcoming vote, I just mentally, and I had to unfriend the people who on Facebook who were sending me all the political stuff, because I just can't keep basking in all that political stuff. I have to go to God to get guidance, to be in the world every single day. And I assume that Spirit must have a plan. There must be an idea about the inequities. And when I was a child, I don't come from any traditional religious background. We were Christian gypsies, so we went wherever the Spirit moved us, which allowed us to spiritually be moved to the Church of Religious Science in the mid-1980s. But before that, we had tried every other philosophy. And I just wanted to raise my hand and say, if a person came and saved the world 2,000 years ago, how come everything's so messy right now? How come it's not all fixed and people aren't loving, clean, and okay? There didn't ever seem to be a place where I could ask that question and satisfactorily get the answer. Now, Ernest Holmes says that spirit is like the light. Now, we believe that spirit is more than light. We believe that spirit is the light and the dark. We believe that a seed sprouts in the dark. A seed does not sprout. If you've ever tried it, take a seed and put it on your kitchen counter, sprinkle it with water. Take a seed and fold it up into a paper towel and sprinkle it with water. In the dark, the seed will sprout. So ideas take root in the dark. But we quite often talk about a spirit, and we talk about the light of that. Well, Ernest Holmes says, when a candle enters into a dark room, it dispels the darkness. And if you think of that as like when I go to spirit and commune with my higher wisdom self, all of my inequities pale in the illumination of spirit. That's a good way to think of it. And Ernest Holmes said, when you take a candle into the dark room, or when you flick on the light in a dark room, the darkness doesn't start having a temper tantrum about the fact that it got lost and it's not there anymore. The dark doesn't hold it against anybody or anything that the light has illumined the room. There's no judgment about how long the room actually sat in the dark. So if we use that analogy in our personal lives, where have we sat in the dark? We've sat in the dark where we identified with effort, struggle, lack, limitation. We've stayed in the dark where we have said that our past, our errors, our mistakes limit us, define us, and keep us from having our good. We are in the dark where we have wandered down a path not knowing, thinking always that everything is going to lead to our good, and finding ourselves way down a road that really we didn't want to go down. And the Spirit says, come back with a thought. Come back in an instant. Come back in the understanding that God before us, nothing can stand real against us. The idea of separation, the light is shining right there, and I can look at the light and have light on me, or I can turn my back to it and look and see a shadow, and it's my choice. And the light didn't stop shining, and God's love didn't stop pouring itself forth. But I might have spent part of my life looking at the dark, the half empty, the not truth about what God is. We believe in the omnis, the three omnis. God is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. God is everywhere present. It created everything out of itself. God plus God equals God. I'm not all that God is, but all that I am is God, except where I separate myself, except where I say the good of God is behind me and all I can see is the dark. Everywhere present, all powerful. I don't have any power of my own. Jesus didn't say, believe in a greater power. He didn't say, I am better than anybody else. He said, don't you know who you are? Don't you know what you can do? Don't you know what belief would do? Belief would take us from fear to faith. That's a simple journey from diminishing life to enriching life. And it's kind of an easy test to look at our thinking and say to oneself, is my thinking contributing to the good of life, or is it diminishing me and myself and my life by my past? It takes discipline, and it takes practice, and it takes courage to look at my thinking and say, it's stinking, and I don't really want to entertain it anymore. To look at my thinking and say, I can think in alignment with the divine, and I can be guided to greater good. I can turn the light on in my life. And every time I put the light out, I can say, oh, that's just me being a poor sinful self. It didn't work. Whoops, I put the light out. And the only bondage that I have is the bondage that I do to myself by saying I'm separate from the good of God. I'm separate from wisdom and guidance. I'm separate from peace and harmony. And it's easy We are seduced into looking at the world and making judgments about the things that we see. We're seduced into thinking that what's happening in the Middle East. I have a friend who doesn't know anything about history and started asking me questions about the Middle East, about why were there different tribes and how did the split apart happen, and and I was like, oh, I'm so grateful. I'm not in a history class. I don't need to know all of those answers. What if none of us, not any one of us, needs to know the why of anything? All we need to know is where's the light switch inside the self that turns on the illumination that opens us to a conscious union with the divine. Ernest Holmes says we are all hungering, every single one of us, for a conscious connection with our higher self. The highest form of prayer, the highest form of meditation, the highest form of spirituality is to have that sense of connection. Sitting in a room with a whole bunch of different people from a whole bunch of different theologies and traditions, and they come up, they are, we're supposed to be working on our ecumenicalism, our sameness, our ability to be of service to people. And one of the things I'm so struck with is how angry people are in their religion. They're angry for the past. They're angry for racism. They're angry for our not being where we're supposed to be as a country. They're angry because their church has spit them out. They're angry because they loved God and they weren't perfect. And I have to say, and where am I angry? And where am I going to offer up a dark corner of myself to be healed? So in the neonatal unit, I've been there twice, and I was in the neonatal unit. My 39-year-old daughter spent 10 days there, and I was there with one of my grandchildren as well. Paulina spent, I think, about 5 or 6 days there. Paulina was one of a twin, so she was the littler twin, and she just was really, really tiny. A very special, special moment for me was my daughter Elizabeth got 2 babies. She got Andrew and Paulina. And Paulina immediately was whisked into the neonatal unit for being so tiny. And Andrew was put right away with his mom and his dad. And so there was my daughter sitting in the room with her big healthy baby, not going to the NICU. And so on the second day, I walked down the hall. I'd been in the NICU 5 times. The baby's daddy had been in the NICU 10 times. I walked down the hall and I went in and I said, have you been in the NICU yet? And she said, no, I don't feel good. I said, get out of bed. She said, but I don't feel good. I said, get out of bed. She said, but Mom. I said, get out of bed. I have this IV. We're taking it with us. I ran her down there. She's just like, I'm going to feel bad. And it was fear. It wasn't faith. It was fear. She was afraid something was going to happen to her baby, and she didn't even want to see it if something was going to happen to it. She was so scared she could hardly. I'm ahead of her, walking down the hall to the NICU. She's behind. I'm like, come on. I'm just this ragged, horrible thing getting my child. And we get in there, and the nurse knows what all's gone on, and I know what all's gone on, and we both, just the nurse and I, step away from that isolette, and to see that mother look at her little peanut, my tiny, tiny peanut, and it was tiny, and just tears. We were so grateful to witness that moment. Then a fireman, my son-in-law is a firefighter for Los Angeles County, so another fireman said, let me loan you my RV so when you get released from the hospital, you can sit in the RV in the parking lot and go in every single time they will let you. 39 years ago, when she had been in the NIC unit, they only let me go 2 times a day for 10 days. So here I go Thursday into the NICU, and the woman that's also an intern with me and the resident, 3 of us, she literally, her knees start to shake. She literally has to catch herself. She's not assigned to that floor. the room is so different. When Elizabeth was there, the lights were bright. She was in an isolette. 39 years ago, they called me and said, you have a cranky baby, bring a radio to keep her company. Took a little transistor radio, played music with her in the isolette. The isolette was in this clear white room with lights shining down on it. That baby laid there just like, oh my God, where have I landed? I couldn't blame her to think, this is not the place I planned on coming to. NICU is nothing like that today. NICU is dark and quiet and soft, and babies are in isolettes that are covered with big, heavy, dark blankets, and they're all cozy and tucked in there. And they have little living room spaces around each one of them, so they have rocking chairs and a chair for family. But there was no family there. So the mother grandmother, my age woman, who could hardly stand up, said, where are the parents? Well, they're still visiting hours up there, and they can't just come and go. But I have such a different feeling about being there than the grandmother who's scared to death to be in there. I have the feeling that babies recover. I have the feeling that babies get well and get to go home. I have the feeling that I can be in there in a scary, scary moment. Those 10 days were some of the toughest 10 days of my entire life. When they'd hand me my baby, and as soon as they put her in my arms, she'd fall sound asleep. She would just sleep the whole time I visited, and as soon as I handed her back, she'd scream until I came again. When they handed it to me to take home, they said, good luck, you have one cranky baby there. And man, did I. I had a kid that never stopped screaming for about 7 or 8 months. But you know, she had a really strange beginning. She got her legs packed in ice after they did injections in her legs, antibiotics in her legs. They did a spinal tap. They had strapped her down to do that. But today, she's this woman, my only kid who's graduated from college, my kid that's spent 2 years selling houses and sold 20 houses in 2 years, my kid who was totally shocked at what it meant to pay her taxes this year because she's made so much money. That's my kid. So I have that sense, and all we're being taught is your presence makes a difference, not your ability to fix or to do, your beingness. When you are in love with life, you walk around, instead of looking at the homeless woman on the side, tears just started. I couldn't stop myself. Then right around the corner, I was PCH and Newland, and right around the corner on Newland was a woman who was walking a dog from the dog rescue there, and the dog had laid down on the ground. And it was an elderly woman, and she had what I would call a 60-pound dog she was trying to drag because he just wouldn't get up. He had laid down, he was tired, and I whizzed on by her because I was anxious to get home. It was Friday evening, and I thought, does she need help? Does she need help? Maybe I should just go back and see if she needed help. And I turned around, and by then she'd gotten the dog up, and they were slowly walking back into the place. But that feeling of what if everything we look at is a gift, is a part of life. Ernest Holmes said that teaching people to find God is like teaching fish to find water. Teaching people to find God is like teaching fish to find water. If you told a fish that the best thing in the whole world for him was going to be water, he just had to find it, he might go north and south and east and west looking for water all the time. He's surrounded. He's living in. He has no life if he is not in water. Ernest Holmes said, God is exactly like water to a fish to us. We would have no life if we did not have God life. And in the moment that we drop into that God life, you know, there's a place of being grateful that I'm not even in charge of anything. Because if I had to make things right, not only would have gone back around to the lady with the dog, but my wheels might have even fallen off with the lady who I assume is homeless. What if we have been given life And our gift in that is, instead of appearances, instead of judgment, instead of opinion, it's renewal in the Spirit. It's renewal in the Spirit. It's thank God I go to God. It's thank God that this life is God's idea. I have no idea what that's about. I'm pretty sure you really have no idea what that's about. Asking ourselves the good questions. The good question is, what does the universe have in mind for me? Why would I be here? What gift have I been brought here to this moment in time to know that I have and to consciously share? Whenever you say you're not good enough to yourself, you're really offending the Lord God of your being. Because you are good enough, you have life. That being loves us unconditionally because it is us. It is having the experience of life that is the life that you have. That is God's idea. 7.3 billion times to be an expression of itself. I don't understand that. There's a lot I don't understand, but I believe that each one of us, when we drop into that truth, we know. Believers, the lovers of Jesus call themselves believers. But Ernest Holmes said, Jesus taught us to believe in the life of God, to believe in the good of ourselves, to believe that everything is conspiring for a greater good, and I don't have to exactly see it to believe it. God has brought you to this place today so that you can believe with faith that you are made in the image and likeness, that whole, perfect, and complete in spirit, so above, so below. Thank you for choosing church. So we take this moment and turn within and recognize that every place that we are taken is the right place. Every door that opens is the right door for us to walk through. Every door that closes is the right door for us to look elsewhere for the opening. God has purpose in creating each of us. That purpose is to be the love that transpires every experience, to let go of being limited by our past, and to move into humble gratitude for the life that we have been given, for the breath that we take repeatedly throughout the day, for a heart that beats, for eyes that cry with compassion, and for eyes that see inward with love and understanding. This life is God's idea. Let each of us go forth today and surrender wholly and completely into a greater good than we have ever imagined possible. Let each of us choose to see the full. And when we notice the empty, let us remember lovingly to ourselves, I'm looking at what isn't. I'm looking at what diminishes me. I have choice. I choose to see the good of God in everyone, in everything, because that is the blessing that I have come to give. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.